Hi there, and welcome to The Artist Craft. I'm your host, Stacey Cochran, and we've got an excellent guest in studio today. Adam Shepard has joined us, and Adam is the author of Scratch Beginnings. Thanks so much for being on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Well, let's start with the most fundamental question of all. Why do you write?
Well, that's a very good question, because this is not something, this book in particular is not something where I aspired to be a writer, where I wanted to be a writer. I was responding to a book called Nickel and Dimed, and I felt there was something that needed to be said, and so I said it here. And I think that that's an important aspect of this story, is writing in response. You read something, you don't like it, and so you respond, and that's what I did.
Why do you think Nickel and Dimed grabbed your attention the way that it did?
Well, I think it was Barbara Ehrenreich. I think it was the author's, her victim mentality, her tone that she took throughout the book. It kind of, it pinched a nerve with me in speaking about the death of the American dream. And so I think from there I kind of formulated this idea on how I could discover the American dream for myself, and then the book idea came about, and here we are.
So what was the first contact that you actually had with the book, with Nickel and Dimed? Were you reading it for a class at Merrimack, or?
Well, I read it, actually I was working for a lady during one of my summers off from school, from college, and she handed me the book and said, you know, I know how you feel, you know, you're working hard, I know it's tough. And I read the book and I was like, no, this is not how I feel at all. And that's when I began to formulate the plan and to do this. And then after college, I went and pursued my basketball career in Europe, which lasted about a day and a half, and I came back and wrote this book.
So what's your very earliest memory of writing?
Thank you notes to, you know, aunts, uncles, grandparents. That's the one thing my parents always made sure that I kept in contact through thank you notes. And from there, you know, I always enjoyed just writing little journal entries, little stories. But again, it's not something where I was, you know, gonna be a writer one day. I really enjoyed reading. That's what I've always done. My parents made sure that they instilled that in me. Reading, reading, reading. And so from there, I just kept writing a little bit.
So were your mom and dad, were either of them writers or journalists? They were encouraging you to read, but I mean, to write a whole book, that takes a lot of ambition.
Absolutely.
Where did that come from?
Absolutely. It came from, it wasn't from my parents. My dad is a terrible writer. He's a great reader, but he's a terrible writer. And so it didn't come from them, but it came from Teresa Peary, who was my 9th grade English teacher. And she just kind of, I don't know what it was, but she struck a passion in writing, and she made it fun, and she showed me how to do it. And from there, that's when I really got into, again, writing stories and taking all the writing assignments much more seriously.
What was it about her teaching style that really, it obviously made an impact on you, it inspired you? What was she able to do that maybe other teachers weren't able to do?
She brought an energy to the classroom, which was so important, but it was also absent in my other classes. And the energy that she brought, it really, I was like, wow, you know, writing can be fun. This is great. And so that's when I started to take it more seriously. And you know, I was turning in my assignments and getting A's, and I was like, well, maybe I'm not such a bad writer, so let's see what we can do here. And so from then on, I just kept writing and enjoying it.
Now, how did you decide on Merrimack College?
I went there to play basketball. I got recruited to play basketball, and I went there, loved it, had a great 4 years, really enjoyed the whole experience up there, and it was a little chillier than it is down here in Raleigh, but it was a great time, and after college I came back home to Raleigh.
So where were you in high school before Merrimack?
Southeast Raleigh High School,
okay.
Right over there on Rock Quarry Road.
And Merrimack had a good basketball program, I guess, and that was what attracted you, or was it academics, or?
It was both. It was both. It was, yeah, a little bit of both. I think that I took my visit there, and you know, you just know it's the right feel for you. Just the atmosphere and the academics and the sports. I mean, it just felt like the right place to be. But again, I visited during the summer, so I don't know if I was exactly ready for January in Boston.
It can be a little chilly up there.
A little chilly, just a little bit.
So where did the idea for Scratch Beginnings first take root? You said you had read, you know,
right.
Nickel and Dimed, but in terms of the actual project itself, was it just that?
Well, it's interesting because I kind of took it from Nickel and Dimed, and then I took a look around me to see, you know, how my friends and my peers and really everyone, many people, in America are acting today. We're riddled with debt. We have these, these large houses that we can't afford, and we seem like such a materialistic society. So I wanted to take it back to the roots and take it back to the true American values and see if they were still out there, if I could discover those on my own.
Well, if you're just tuning in, this is The Artist Craft. I'm your host, Stacey Cochran, and the author today is Adam Shepard, and the book is Scratch Beginnings. Me, $25 in the Search for the American Dream. So the title gives away a little bit, but tell us a little bit more about the story. What is the story of Scratch Beginnings?
Well, the project I did was to start with $25, the clothes on my back, in a randomly chosen city out of a hat. And from there, I would work hard, save my money, I would live the American dream, and the goal was that in 1 year, being restricted from using my previous contacts, credit history, anything like that, my education history, everything was eliminated, and I had to have $2,500, a car, and a furnished apartment in 1 year. That was the goal.
So did you sit down and write these goals out in advance? You said, okay, this is what I want to accomplish. I'm going to start from absolutely nothing, from a scratch beginning,
right.
Literally.
Well, I wrote the introduction, left it at home, and then I left. And I think there's a degree of purity here, because the book was kind of secondary. I was really trying to be totally immersed in this. I kept a journal, but I wasn't looking at this from the perspective of an author or journalist. I was really trying to immerse myself, and I'm probably one of the few authors out there that has asserted in their introduction that I am not an author or a journalist. I was really trying to get into the flow of life for a year in poverty, and that's what I was going for. I was trying to work my way up from there, and so, like I said, I think it adds a degree of purity to my project.
Sure. So you came from probably a pretty middle-class background, and to go in and do this sort of ethnographic study is, I can imagine it would be, was it exciting for you?
Well, I don't know if I would use the word excited. I was a little bit more anxious because I didn't know, I was insecure. I didn't know what the next day, what the next morning would bring. And there was a degree of anxiety, of excitement, because I was in a new land, a new discovery, and that's what it was for me. I was looking at this with a totally naive, totally new perspective, and I think that comes out in this book. I think it comes out where there are certain encounters that I have in certain situations that I didn't have growing up, and I discovered those for the first time, and so it was fascinating, and like I said before, it was inspiring for me.
Why do you think the life of homeless people, why did that appeal to you? What was it in your psychological makeup that you said, I want to know what that's like?
Well, I think we have this we all have these perceptions and these biases, and we have this perception of the poor. We have this perception of the homeless, and I wanted to discover if those perceptions would ring true, and that's what it was all about, was discovering that lifestyle. And what's really interesting in this book is we all see the bearded, old, fat man that's begging for money on the street corner. But I really discovered a whole new aspect here, a whole different aspect. Guys that were just down on their luck, had hit that roadblock, and were really fighting and doing what it took to get out. And so to meet them in the homeless shelter and then beyond when I move out, to meet guys like Derek and Omar and BG, and to tell their stories that are far more fascinating than mine, to meet them, it was interesting.
Well, it's a side of life that we, I think, in America are aware of, but know little about.
Right.
If you're just tuning in, the guest is Adam Shepard, and the book is Scratch Beginnings. Essentially, it's the story of Adam's search for the American dream by starting out with absolutely nothing, 25 bucks to his name, took a train to Charleston, South Carolina, and said, hey, I'm going to make a go of it for 1 year and see if I can pull myself up by my bootstraps